Good day, everybody, and what's up? Welcome to the podcast for Selfless Action. She Comes First. I am Dr. Nick. Today is August the 9th, and I hope you all out there are having a great day. And right off the bat, I want to say thank you to everyone out there who listened to the most recent PSA on vacation sex. And it seems like people have a lot of vacation sex, twice as much as they normally do when they are home. So in other words, keep up the good work. Today, I want to talk about a topic that does not really seem to get as much attention as it probably should, and it's female sexual fantasies. So today, I really want to go through a quick top 10 list of female sexual fantasies and just get your thoughts about them. Some of them are very common and basic, and in contrast, some of them can be really aggressive, and in some cases, maybe even scary. But don't forget, they are fantasies. So let's talk about that today. So coming in at number 10, we have stranger sex. So just the idea of going to a no-name motel with a mystery man for a wild night of uninhibited sex is just what they're looking for. And what's interesting is that these women agreed that this is the only way they can really let loose and be their truly sexual self is with a stranger, because they won't be judged by their regular sexual partner. And Francine, who took part in this focus group, said this: the idea of sharing a passionate night with a stranger and behaving like a sexual predator doesn't just sound inviting, it sounds delicious. And leaving after we're done without even knowing each other's name is the best part. At number 9, we have group sex. And one of the participants of the focus group said this: the freedom of being nude in front of a bunch of people who are equally exposed, allowing different men and women to touch and penetrate your bodies simultaneously, is incredibly erotic. So fellas, pay attention to my next statement. Do not assume that all women want to engage in group sex unless she specifically asks you to set something up. That's very important. Pay attention to what I just said. At number 8, we have sexually dominating a man. So when the facilitator asked them to break it down and be more specific, the women said this: they wanted to spank him. Number 2, order him to perform certain sexual acts. Number 3, make him beg for what he wants. And number 4, make him suck on their stiletto heels or some other phallic object. Number 7, public sex. It seems that many women actually fantasize about having an audience while engaging in certain sexual activities with their partner. And it seems like the idea of knowing that others are getting excited by their quote-unquote performance gives them a sense of feeling empowered. And one woman in the focus group said this: imagining that people are watching me while I take my partner's manhood into my mouth gives me a feeling of satisfaction because it makes me feel sexier. And rounding out the top half of the list, we have number 6, which is surrendering to your partner / being sexually ravaged. And in this fantasy, the women seem to like the idea of having a sexual master, but the women were split on what to do, where some of the women said that they would submit to the partner's demands, and other women felt that they would just say no, and that they would end up resisting their partner's demands and disobey his commands. For example, we have Vicky, who said, having him instruct me on how to lick and suck his member, or at what pace to ride him, will make me orgasm faster than I can say yes, master. In contrast, Miss Denise said this: well, it depends. In some fantasies, I can obey, yet in others, I fight him and I refuse to do anything he says until he finally ties me to the bed and calms me with his rhythmic penetrations. At number 5, we have sex with another woman. And the author of this article actually wrote, yes, virtually every woman wants to or will share her body with another woman. And at the same time, these women in this focus group want their male partner to watch them with the other woman, which is perfectly fine with me. Sarah, who was a part of this group, she said, the idea of touching another soft, hairless body and softly sucking her tongue, amongst other things, seems very erotic. And I would tend to agree with her on that. And here at number 4, we have a fantasy of getting paid for your sexual services. So in this fantasy, these women wanted to be high-end strippers or actually be high-end call girls where they were paid to have sex. So we have Tina, who said, while I am performing a lap dance for my customer, he hands me a $100 bill and requests that I perform the lap dance minus his pants. And then we have Amber's fantasy about being a prostitute, where she says, the gentleman would pick me up in his expensive car and I would ride him in the driver's seat in some dingy back alley. He would pay me for my fee and I'd be on my way. Here at number 3, we have the sexual fantasy where one woman is sexually spoiled by 2 men. And in this case, these men are only there for her pleasure only. So when the facilitator asked them to explain more, one woman gave the example of having one guy penetrate her vaginally where the other guy would lick on her clitoris. Someone else suggested that she wanted 2 men to go down on her at the same time, or she could change it just a little bit where one guy was going down on her and the other guy was sucking on her breast. And she said that this activity should go on for several hours. And then there were a few women in that group who seemed to want something more aggressive. One woman said she wanted to be penetrated in the anus and the vagina at the same time, and then she wants the guys to quote unquote blow their load all over her. She wanted to be blindfolded through the entire thing. We're almost there. So at number 2, we have pegging. And for this fantasy, these women actually wanted to dress up like a man in a 3-piece suit and actually wear a strap-on dildo so they can actually penetrate their male sexual partner just like a man. And one woman in the group said that she was actually able to do this with her current sex partner. And she said it was absolutely incredible to be able to penetrate a man and feel the empowerment usually associated with being the aggressor. And then Carol, who is also a member of this focus group, said, there is something incredible about having a man in a vulnerable position that is an incredible turn on. The idea of knowing that we're in the position that is usually assumed by men is probably the most erotic element of them all. Well, we made it down to number 1. So when it comes to these women, what do you think their most popular sexual fantasy actually is? Do you think it's something like sex in the meadow, or sex like during a picnic, or sex on the side of a snowy mountain, or sex in a sex swing, or something like that? Well, truth be told, their number 1 sexual fantasy is actually the rape fantasy. One woman of the group explained her sexual fantasy this way. She wanted the predatory man to push her up against the wall and pin her arms up over her head while he was using his other hand to work his way under her skirt and fondle her vagina. And when she said this, the vast majority of the other women in the group all nodded their head in agreement. And to take this a step further, we have Andrea, who I mentioned a few times already. She said she wanted this predatory man to rip off her clothes force her legs open and penetrate her, and at the same time smear her lipstick all over her face with his forceful kisses. And once again, all the women in the group seem to nod in agreement to her sexual fantasy. So before I go, I gotta say this. Fellas, please keep in mind that these are sexual fantasies. And when it comes to fantasies, there is a big difference between fantasies and reality. Hear me out. In some of these sexual fantasies, you can actually end up in jail. So there's no real way that you can just kind of like oops your way into a sexual fantasy and or surprise your lady with a sexual fantasy. You really have to talk to her about it prior to and ask her if she has any. She may actually have some sexual fantasies or she may not, but either way, it's all good. But the one thing you cannot do is surprise your lady like that, because in many cases, as I just said, you can end up in jail. So your night of passion that you had planned in your head just went completely wrong, and now you are sitting in a jail cell. Think about it first. Talk to your lady about it. Don't just do it. So in closing out this podcast, I have to say this as well. Please keep in mind that sexual fantasies are a natural part and a healthy part of sexuality and of your sexual health. So my question is, did any of your sexual fantasies make it onto the list? And have you ever talked to your partner about trying out any of your sexual fantasies? And thirdly, if you did try out your sexual fantasies, what was it like? Or more importantly, what was a sexual fantasy and how did things work out for you? So on that note, I'm out. You guys have a great day. Stay tuned and I will talk to you soon.